back to the channel.
Welcome back to the Pipe Dreams podcast. We're the Chuba Brothers. Today we're getting into maybe some controversial stuff as usual. While we smoke our pipes and we drink some good ales. But with the topic today is basically, how we're all really a part of the empire and how, we might call the country and the world order, whatever, republics, but they really do operate in sort of a Star Wars style empire, of course. And in general, I am pro-empire. That's typically my political leaning, like the Holy Roman Empire type government, Byzantium, stuff like that, where there's church and state relations, blah, blah, blah. But no, the Star Wars empire is, of course, the top-down Tower of Babel, emperor at the top, enforce everything through tyranny. Basically, top-down is the main indicator, as far as I can tell, of some sort of tyrannical system. And in Star Wars, it just happens to be an empire style. Of course, I'm for more of church and state relations, and from a bottom-up empire, like the Holy Roman Empire and Byzantium. Typical Catholic view right there. Going back like 2,000 years. But what I'm saying is, getting a little bit off track right at the start, is that the system now that we are in, it is definitely a type of a tyrannical empire. Would you agree?
Definitely.
You agree with me so far?
Yeah, I got you.
And so, I got some notes here, some things that we can talk about. And I think that there's sort of three stages of recognizing this, because, of course, all of us, even if you're not even in the public school system, you could be in the private school system. I don't know about homeschooling. I feel like it might be a little bit different, but if you have any exposure to social media, television, there's going to be a similar type of programming. The TV programs are programming.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't just be blamed on just one thing, like us, just the public school system. Well, no, because the private schools have to follow a very similar curriculum. Homeschools, they just don't go out on the farm every day. They follow some sort of online, curriculum.
You pretty much have to learn the same stuff.
Yeah, the same stuff, and it's all, and not just that, but people spend too much time behind the television where you're hearing the same exact talking points, and that's why people develop the same exact opinions. So it's really difficult to escape unless you, like everybody, no one's born with a complete and utter, all the faculties of reason, so you have to develop these over your life. And so, as you kind of come out of these three phases, it's almost like Plato's cave we've talked about before, where there are those different phases of you are inside the cave, and you think the reality is the projections of the animals walking in front of the fire behind you, projecting what you think is the reality on the wall of the cave, not knowing that that's just literally a shadow or a projection of the real thing, and that's just before you can get even outside of the cave and see what you think is reality. Then when you think you're enlightened in that moment, the final realization is that everything that you see is just, you can only see it because of the sun, and that the actual reality is even just beyond the sun. Like the sun is the fire behind you, essentially. So there are all these different phases of essentially being born in sort of like an animal stage of just being focused on food, and the typical Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like as a kid, you're kind of like focused on food and your emotional connection with your parents, and how your people at school see you, and
the small
things. So you want to be in the system as a kid, essentially. You just want to fit in. And then, of course, as you mature, there's the meme of the NPC. Most people stay in that phase, and then as the philosopher, as Plato would say, is the one that kind of develops and moves out of those phases. Doesn't mean you have to be a conspiracy theorist about absolutely everything. I think that's also, as a conspiracy theorist, it's just another phase of an NPC, where you're blinded to reality by thinking that there almost is no reality, that everything is an utter lie. But just getting into it.
Yeah, you can get lost in that real quick.
Yeah, where you go from believing absolutely everything to believing absolutely nothing. And it's sort of anything that's those two extremes is just they end up being the two different sides of the same coin.
Because you end up being the crazy person.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
your
he doesn't know
reality,
what he's talking about.
like your reality, is based on the other reality. It's the opposite of the main thing, which it's never, as we've talked about before, virtue is never in the extremes necessarily. It's like a proper balance and proper reasoning. But so I'd say that there's generally the first phase of realizing the truth behind like the system that we all live in. I just kind of give it these names of like the typical like nationalist almost, especially in America. We literally refer to it as America. So like it's this continent-sized nation that we pledge allegiance to at sports events, in school. We don't view ourselves as Pennsylvanians. It's Americans. America started off as a system where you would consider yourself as whatever state you grew up in, that you were born into, you were a citizen of. So things were much different in the 1700s and even really into the 1800s. And so people today, they have that nationalist bent. Even if you're a liberal on the left wing, whenever it comes down to it, you can kind of see these differences and stuff like that. But like, let's just say 9/11 happens. All of a sudden, all of the people, all of the masses get behind the propaganda machine. That is every single news network owned by just a select few people. And that's kind of like the main problem with this entire system, is that we have this false reality of like a free market, free press. You go to a store and it's like, oh, this is a new product or whatever. This is a new producer, and you buy it, you just look into it. It's just owned by a bigger
corporation,
a parent company owned by a parent company, and the store that you're buying it from, even if it's like, it could, unless it's literally owned by like a family, chances are it's like some sort of under BlackRock vanguard at the head of the serpent, essentially. It really is this whole Tower of Babel thing. That's why whenever anything happens in the news, everyone comes out with the same exact opinions. Every store, every sports team, just look into it enough. It's the same exact system. Goes up to the top, and it's the orders come down. The same exact opinions. So yeah, that's just like the typical nationalist thing. So yeah, whenever something like 9/11 happens, Pearl Harbor, or most recently, the Russian war, the Ukrainian war, liberals and conservatives alike that are sort of in that NPC bent are immediately like, they go back into okay, we have these little differences between one another, but no, now Russia is the enemy. This is the truth. COVID. Okay, put our differences aside. It's the nationalist bent, even if you are like on the liberal side or the conservative side. I don't say national. Typically, nationalist is a far right wing thing. But really, as an American, we are basically raised with that nationalist bent for the reasons that I just said. Plus, the school system's the same exact way, and they really only give you the two options. I'm kind of like not letting you speak here, but
I'm enjoying it.
They give you like the two options to choose from. It's some sort of like classical liberal, which was like founding father style political party, sort of like Tea Party, small government, but allow the corporations to rule the world, and then some sort of classical socialism, which is just, there's benefits to both. Like I do like having a weekend, and Social Security is probably generally a good thing. And
that's all we know, though.
Well, at our generation, but like 100 years ago, it was like this 40-hour work week didn't exist, and the weekend didn't exist, and all these all these different holidays. These are like little socialist things because to correct the ills of capitalism. But then socialism goes too far, and then so you have like two sides of the same coin, which is like the problem is like it's the Tower of Babel system that has the capitalism on one side, socialism on the other. It has a neoconservative on one side, liberal on the other. So what I'm saying is most people are just in that paradigm of Republican Democrats, capitalist socialist, but there's boundaries there. As soon as you leave to be too far of a socialist or too far of a nationalist conservative, you're immediately cut off from like the normal conversation. And there's good and bad things about leaving that, of course, but I'd say that's sort of like that's how most people were raised. But so So the very next phase of leaving this, I would argue, is essentially going to like more of a Tea Party mindset of, okay, the system's corrupt, and the first one to blame is the government. And I think this is generally a conservative thing, is to go, and the same thing might honestly be happening on the left as well, where they go, okay, the corporations are the ones drilling and having all the oil spills, and are the cause for us going into the Middle East and just bombing everybody, and causing the refugee crises and all this kind of stuff. And because you were over there because of big oil, and although the Democratic Party did have a deal with Obama and the pharmaceutical industry, that's sort of how. So like the Democratic Party really is tied to big pharma, and others, the whole Green Deal and all that kind of stuff. But the right wing is tied to at least the military-industrial complex and big oil. Those are their donors, and so like you have just capitalists funding these government officials. So you basically, at least on the right wing, you see, okay, government is bad, just allow the free market to run, not knowing that, it's the free market that's cutting down all the trees in the Amazon and like polluting the entire world. And yeah, so that's a big problem there. And so the answer isn't just small government. It really, basically that leads me to like the final stage, and that is realizing that the government and the corporations are owned by the same exact people. They go to the same Ivy League schools. The generals go to the same school as presidents and the senators and all these kind of things. They're the same social groups, colleges. They're basically from the same exact families. And the corporations send the bureaucrats to D.C. And so really the three branches of government are D.C., Hollywood, and Wall Street. And that's so that's big money in Wall Street, big government in D.C., and the propaganda machine in Hollywood. And just the relationship between those three really are the head of the empire. I feel like it's naive to think that there's some semblance of a balance of powers in D.C. where you have just a bunch of lawyers and politicians, and all three branches of government all have been to the same schools. Whereas in the days of old, there would have been a whole class of priests sort of under a different education system, under a different leadership, advising, with different goals. Like, obviously as a priest, you can't have kids. So like there is the whole thing of like, it bends your desire for power and things like that. So like politicians get in there and they're looking for, how do I get elected for the next 4 years, and then how can I suck as much out of this 4 years as I can so I can set my family up. You don't have that whenever you have like a church-state relationship, generally. Of course they were corrupt, Protestants, of course, how they'll point out their one example of maybe a possibly, in the back in like the 1300s of like the princes, the princely era of cardinals, where there was more wealth creation and stuff like that, desire for wealth. But yeah, no, basically I'm just gonna keep going on here, but
keep going. How does this compare to like the empire itself, like the Death Star? Are we gonna eventually?
Yeah, no, so I'm saying that, so this last third stage of, once you come to the realization that the government and the corporations are essentially the same unit, and the two-party system is, you're choosing from like, royal blue and like baby blue, and you're just ignoring the whole spectrum of like the rest of the rainbow, essentially. And you sort of have your, like I said, the capitalist, neoconservative, even like the Zionists on one party, the socialist, neoliberal people in the other party, and the relationship between the two. That's technically the definition of fascism. I think there's a lot of benefits to certain forms of fascism, but the type of fascism that is practiced in our society today, it's that incestuous relationship at the top between these national and global companies in these huge continent-sized countries, making these decisions and forcing them down on everybody else. I mean, I would say that like the world order is extremely fascist, bad fascist, where we basically have absolutely no say in who is elected and where our products even come from. And that's the problem, is you go into the school system and you just listen to the news, and it's vote with your feet, stop buying the products. And it's like, you kind of start to realize at this point, they're not doing this. The people that, like, they have so much money at this point. I'm going to get through some of this stuff here. They're at such a point where it doesn't matter if you own the money printer and you have so much interest from all these banks. Like, the money does not really, once you get to a certain level, it's different if we start a company. Well, obviously there's a profit motive to a good degree, but once you're at the point of, like, everyone in America's 401k is invested in like the same exact companies, it's like, what do they need a couple $1 billion worth, like Bud Light's thing? And it's like, yeah, it might hurt them slightly here and there. That might be even like a one-off example. Maybe it actually works, the boycott or whatever, but like, we're talking about like one stormtrooper in the whole army. Taking out Bud Light is like killing like one stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Not just getting into it here, because like, you're in a tyrannical system whenever everything that you do in like a mundane level in daily life is completely ordered around the tyrants, and you don't even know it. And just to get into some stuff here, like mowing the grass. I was just gonna say, in order to even mow the grass, you have to buy a piece of property. And so that's, you buy the property, you pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay taxes every year on the property. So this money's all going into the system, into the big government. It's like, okay, everyone has to pay taxes to a degree.
You gotta buy gas.
Then you need, so other than the taxes of buying the property and the taxes every single year, you need to buy a lawnmower. Who you buying the lawnmower of? Select few.
There's only like usually
companies.
2.
The mower companies, the main ones: John Deere, Honda, Toro, and Kubota. And you might see that right off the bat and go, okay, yeah, so these are some big companies, whatever. Some semblance of a free market. Who owns John Deere? Vanguard, Cascade, BlackRock, State Street, Bill Gates.
Really?
Who owns Honda? Vanguard and 2 other like oligarch Japanese companies.
Jeez.
Toro, Vanguard, T. Rowe, J.P. Morgan. Who owns Kubota? BlackRock, Vanguard, and a couple other a few other Japanese companies. These are the highest owners.
I didn't know that.
That's just, okay, we're just talking about cutting the grass. So like, just to buy the lawnmower, you pay taxes on buying the lawnmower.
Mm-hmm.
Your money goes straight to them.
And the gas you gotta put in it.
The gas you gotta get to it, you either buy the fuel taxed, and the fuel goes to big oil companies, select few. So everyone has to take part in like the oil drilling, which is like destroying the earth. Just
to cut the grass.
Yeah.
And you're cutting the grass at least 3 times a week. Most people.
Yeah, so it's the fuel, the property, and the lawnmower. So the taxes involved in every single one of those, and the corporations, the select few corporations that you're funding, while just cutting the grass. And so that's just cutting the grass that everyone has to do on a daily basis. And that's with your money that you have to go to work for. How do you go to work? You have to buy a vehicle. You pay taxes on the vehicle. It goes to a select few companies. You have to buy the gas to go in the company. It's the same exact process. Pay taxes for. So you're constantly, and plus the money that you're making, taxed, gets to your pocket. You have to buy all your daily things. So grocery shopping would be next. Okay. Most of it's just poisonous food made in some other country. They put some sort of preservative in it so that it could make its way over here. It's ending up poisoning our bodies. Who owns these grocery stores? Giant Eagle's a big one. I'm just gonna name some of the names, and if you know where these names, the ethnicity comes from, it's up to you. Giant Eagle is owned by Goldstein, Porter, Moravitz, and Weizenbaum. So a whole bunch of Hebrews own that chain, and Giant Eagle owns. And Giant Eagle is like just a company who owns a plethora of other companies. They own Aldi, whatever. Kroger. Who owns Kroger? BlackRock, Vanguard, Berkshire Hathaway, State Street. Target is owned by Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. Amazon owns Whole Foods. Bezos only owns 10% of Amazon. Who else owns it? BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street.
He only owns 10%.
Yeah, less. Dollar General. These are the top grocery stores.
Where most people, shop at.
Dollar General is owned by Vanguard, Row Price Group, State Street. Now, they're obviously owned by more than us. These are just the main ones. And whenever you have a majority share, you put in the CEO. You're on the board of directors. It's completely because everyone has you have a 401k. You have a 0.00001% ownership in a company. You have no say. It's not an actual ownership. It's a facade of an ownership. Because whenever you own things, if you have ownership over something, you have a say in it. Whenever you own some stocks as a lowly stormtrooper like us, you don't have actual ownership.
You have no say.
Yeah, and so that's just, I'm talking about your daily life here. And plus, you're paying taxes and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to these greedy capitalists and these greedy socialists in the government. So clothes, it's the same deal. Select few. But if we're just talking about everything, even just a washing machine, right? It's a similar process where you got to buy a machine. It's owned by the corporation. Your taxed money, your income tax. Now you have to buy a machine. Not just the machine, you have to pay taxes on the machine. Now you have to pay for water, electric, the gas that goes into the whole operation of the whole thing. The clothes that you buy to put in there, same exact process. Taxes, the whole deal. And even just, sports in general. You just turn on the TV. Of course, you got to pay the government to have a television. And then all the channels and all the different subscriptions that you have to have, all the money's just funneling into these same Fortune 500 companies. It's kind of depressing whenever you really think about it, but I'm just trying to show the point that we have become so conditioned to this, and especially whenever it's all just on your card. It's just, I just put it right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you don't even realize that, and that's plus your 401k. So you have your paycheck, whatever, 20 to 30%, whatever it is in taxes. Then you have a degree that, a certain percentage that goes to your 401k, which is going to these same exact companies. It's so spread out that you don't even know who it's going to. And most of these companies do not have your best interests in mind. Same with the government. And so, most of the wealth is just in the country is just in 401k, IRA investments.
Yeah, even your credit cards.
Yeah.
You're just going to somebody who owns those banks, and you're just oh, it's just whoever this is. I'm just going to get a credit card from them. They don't have your best interest in at all.
Yeah, and they can, once they have that money, they can lend out money based on your money.
Mm-hmm.
So they can lend your money out, and they can lend, the banks have a way to basically create money. So no matter what, even if the government doesn't print money, the banks have the ability to lend out your money. And by lending out money, that is creating more money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard way. Finance is, I went to school for finance. I like to read about this sort of things. People don't realize that is why, even if the government doesn't print money, which they do like crazy, there's always going to be inflation, because the banks have that ability to consistently lend out on money that they don't even have.
Yeah, they said if you go to your money that's you see in your bank, they might not even have it, especially if you
If there was ever a crisis, no bank actually has
Mm-hmm.
more money. It's all the loan on this house is based on somebody else's loan. Yeah,
That's crazy.
So same thing with all the sports teams in Hollywood. It's all this bread and circuses type of deal. This, essentially the
the Romans. I mean, they said that in the Romans, right? As long as you give the people bread and circuses, there will be no revolt. Yeah, just keep distracting the people.
BlackRock even has a huge percent of. I just looked it up before. They own like the big percentage of Manchester, whatever. I'm not into soccer and stuff like that, but what is that, Manchester United or something?
Yeah, it's a soccer team.
Yeah, they own a majority share. And that was just one that I had listed there, and and so
they have their greedy hands in everything. My gosh.
Larry Fink's the owner of that. He's another one of them Hebrews, and
Hebrews
basically owns the world. But this is and we're kind of seeing this today with the situation in Ukraine, where BlackRock is actually going to be They have a deal with the U.S. government. They're going to be buying up most of Ukraine. They're going to be creating rental properties for all the people in the future there. So
Interesting.
They're just going to own Ukraine.
Exactly what
by the
Putin
U.S.
said,
government
yeah.
being okay with it. So that's that fascistic. But it's hardly even fascistic because it's literally the corporations owning the government.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's as far as I can tell, fascism is where there's like a mutual cooperation, whereas this literally seems like the select few companies at the very top literally own and control the government.
Well, I just heard too also that because of COVID, all those big companies like increased by 30% more because all the small companies had to close and all the big companies stayed open. They actually made, because of COVID, they made actually 30% more than most.
Yeah. And how many people?
Yeah. And they said a bunch of, probably hundreds of thousands of companies closed. And these ones, of course, just got more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a sad situation that we're in. I think the saddest part is that most people, like I would say 90% of people don't even know that this is going on.
They don't care. They just go there, and as long as they get their food in there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's even just difficult to even realize. It's like those phases that I went over at the beginning. It's difficult to even leave the first or the second one to get into the, okay, so there is an incestuous relationship between the corporations and the government, and they literally own almost everything.
Well, they're usually the first ones to bitch about it. The people that are like, complain about it. Meanwhile, like, they don't think twice about where they're even shopping at.
Yeah, they don't think about that. They don't think where their investments are at. They're not looking for other ways to make money.
Well, they don't care where their investment's at because what is it? 40% of the people live paycheck to paycheck. Was it 40%? What was it?
It's a big. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, or they have less than $1,000 in their savings. There was a percent I was like completely mind blown on.
Yeah, and that's also to do with all of the loans that everyone has. I didn't even get into the university system. University sports are all owned by the same. It's the same basic system of like the relationship between the banks and the universities, where the banks allow students at the age of 18, 17 to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans to go to the university, and the universities are okay with it because the government does not allow student loans to be written off in bankruptcy. So right there you see a relationship between three different entities to screw over the people. So good luck voting our way out of that one, or physically voting or voting with your feet. I mean, the only way to do that is to literally convince the majority of the country to like stop going to university.
I mean, it's literally a crime. They should be hung on the streets for letting an 18-year-old take out a $100,000 loan and hope to God he pays it off, gets a job or an education enough to. I mean, most of these people that go to college, they don't even get it. They're unwilling to pay that back with the job that they have. Yeah. I mean, how many people do we know that came out with like some general studies thing, and they actually, or like something they went for? It's like, what have you been doing? They're like working at a grocery store. They're not even doing what they went to college for.
Yeah, and like then we wonder like, why aren't people getting married? Why isn't there like the birth rate declining? And it's like, just look past
every person's
the people, the complete and utter system that we're in, economically, politically, socially.
Because each person's carrying like literally a house on top of them worth of loans.
Yeah.
$100,000. That's just like, I mean, that's lowballing. I mean, I know some people that are over $100,000.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. But no, that was pretty much the main topic for discussion here. And then, I was just kind of saying, like, whenever people get together, there is this typically a very like low IQ conversation and like mentality.
They're trying to find
we all fall into this of like, oh, how do I get ahead of this guy? Or like, your problems are so surface level, like sitting on a bus or whatever. You're just like, everyone's like reading the newspaper, on social media, and it's like constant consuming, eating the fast food or whatever, and it's like everyone's competing with one another for jobs and stuff like this, and that's all happening at this very surface level. It's literally the rat race, as some would call it, where I saw like this meme where like the trap has like your neck on like a keyboard right now.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's it. Or like on your phone or whatever. Yeah, I think there's a phase that people go through, and it's once you figure this out, it's very black pilling, as some would say, where it seems very pessimistic. And then, because the next war that we go into, there's going to be a majority of the population that are going to be so willing to go and die for the whole thing that I just explained.
Exactly like how Star Wars is.
And they're going to say, we're going to go die for freedom. Just like the last war, just like the last war, just like the last war. And what's going to happen in the end is that they die, they come back with PTSD, they beat their wives, and they ruin their kids' lives.
And they're part of the
And the
system.
corporations are just going to be making more and more
Get them on
money.
medication, have them stay at a different place.
I didn't even mention the pharmaceutical industry, which is probably honestly like one of the most corrupt out of any of these that I even mentioned. But that's probably all for this channel. I didn't even get to light up my old church warden here.
Well, if you want to. I am smoking. Which one am I smoking? Treasure Island by the Country Squire. I haven't made a tin for it yet.
I'm smoking. I don't even know what this is. It's a nameless bag.
That was
Some
one.
nutty
I think
thing?
that Mom got us that. I think that is one of Lane Limited's flavors.
Okay.
And we were drinking. Well, he already drank yours. A nice good old Samuel Adams Sam 76.
I actually do like that.
It's not bad. Well, who owns it?
I don't even want to look.
Probably Hebrew.
Yeah, they probably do, even though most people aren't allowed drinking.
Mm-mm.
But I think they actually own Marlboro that you're representing.
To the trash.
But no, like I was saying, there's a black pill pessimism that comes out at first. You just go, oh, so we're completely screwed. You just got to learn to live with it and try to make decisions. Like, for example, we try to shop at the Amish.
Yeah. There's no way
I
around
don't
it.
see too many bad things involved in that. I mean,
Yeah. Their stuff is usually.
I'm not giving money to the emperor to blow up the next planet. Essentially,
I mean, what was the thing that Jesus said? Give to.
Caesar what is Caesar.
Yeah. So there's nothing you can't get around
Yeah,
that.
you can't get out of it completely, unless you literally like get off the map. But then I'm sure you're gonna be like hunted down by someone. But
yeah, I was just stop going to the like Walmarts and Targets and stuff like that, and just go to like your local mom and pop shops or
the
Amish.
And do as many things. Learn to do as many things as you possibly can yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then surround yourselves with people that can do similar things, but also like tasks that can like complement each other, that you can like collaborate.
Like
what
alcohol,
else?
we make our own alcohol.
Yeah.
When's the last time
even
we
though we
liquor?
just had that, but
Oh yeah, I mean someone gave us that.
every once in a while I do like true.
Yeah.
We didn't actually pay for that.
But like liquor stores, I guarantee they're probably owned by who? I mean,
Well, actually, the
If
ones in
looking-
Pennsylvania are owned by the state, but
oh
the actual liquor are owned by the few monopolies, I'm sure.
yeah,
Well, because like they have it's so expensive for a distilling license.
yeah.
It's just the select few.
So get into home brewing. It's fun. You learn a lot. Free
Yeah.
alcohol.
Somewhat free. Just become as self-sufficient as you can. Obviously, it's impossible to be like completely. I don't
Mhm.
say impossible. It's basically impossible to become completely self-sufficient. But that's what other people are for, because we're not meant to be alone. So yeah, try to build a community around yourselves. Screw the government and the corporations.
Yep. It's a good topic though.
Yeah, let's just end it there. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe to the
Yeah,
channel.
check
Follow us
out
on
these
Instagram, The
videos.
Truba Brothers.
No top 3 videos.
Watch some of the other videos. I've been posting some chess shorts. We've been
Yeah, we've been playing chess for about a year, so that's another thing that maybe we'll have a topic about that sometime.
Yeah.
But we were really into chess though, so he's just been putting different moves on the shorts and stuff.
Yeah,
and-
just because, just real quick videos and some stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.